Hello, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video. So I've said this probably 1 million times before, and I'm going to probably continue to say it another 1 million times, and that is just how freaking hard jiu-jitsu is. And to be quite honest, I think it only gets harder because you keep getting better, your partners keep getting better, and everything becomes more technical, everything becomes more detailed, and it just gets harder to successfully do anything. It just gets harder to successfully do any kind of movements, to get sweeps, to get submissions, but that's what jiu-jitsu is all about. That's why it's literally never ending, right? But that does not take away from just how hard jiu-jitsu is your first couple of weeks. So today, we're gonna talk about a couple of things that I think are just helpful when you're in your first couple weeks of your white belt. Maybe you're 1 to 2 months into it, or maybe you haven't even started, but you're watching my channel and you're thinking about maybe giving it a try. I think these 4 points are just kind of helpful things to keep in mind when you're in that really awkward phase when you don't know how to tie your belt, you feel weird not wearing shoes all the time. These are things to just sort of keep in mind, things to focus on in those first couple of weeks when absolutely nothing makes sense, when you have zero idea on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and everything is just sort of a complete mess. Before we get started, let me also say that I do think these points that I'm going to go into are helpful for everyone, no matter how advanced you are. I think it's really important to always focus on these things, but especially as a brand new white belt, I just think that these 4 things are really helpful when you have no idea what you're doing. These are things just to kind of focus on to get you through those first couple of weeks, that first month or 2. So, what to focus on as a brand new white belt? Tip number 1, realize that kind of the idea of jiu-jitsu is creating space or minimizing space. It's moving your own body to, like I said, create the space or take it away. It's not so much using all of your strength and all of your power to push somebody off of you, to rip their arm off. It's using that space or lack thereof. It's using different angles. It's using different points of leverage to successfully do the movements that you want. So what do I mean by that? For example, if I'm in bottom side control and I have someone on top of me and they're really tight, they're giving me a lot of heavy pressure, I'm not gonna be able to just shoot my arms up and push them off of me. I have to first create my frames, move my hips out, create my space in order to get my legs back in front of me and recover my guard. Here you can see me creating my frames first. So I have one frame underneath Todd's neck, cupping his shoulder. I have another frame on his hip. I'm going to kind of push into him, make him a little bit uncomfortable with my frames. I'm going to be on my toes, move my feet out to the side in order to hip escape away from him. With that hip escape, I created a little bit of space to get my bottom knee to the inside so that I would be able to recover to my closed guard. In terms of self-defense, we want to do the same thing. We want to create that space between us and our attacker. And that's why we learn hip escapes, sit escapes, technical stand-ups at the very beginning so that we can create that space to get away from the person who is potentially trying to do us harm. Now, what do I mean by taking away the space? There are certain movements in jiu-jitsu where we want to actually close the gap between us and our partner. For example, here you can see me start to set up a butterfly sweep. I am taking away that space between Todd and I. So I'm sit escaping in towards him. I'm getting my hooks to the inside. I'm getting an underhook under his armpit, and I'm getting an overhook over his elbow. From there are various entries that I can get into to sweep and attack. But my point of this movement that I'm showing you is showing how we are taking away the space so that I can get closer to my partner to start setting up my attacks. Point number 2 on what to focus on when you are a brand new white belt is positions over submissions. I remember being brand new and having my coaches tell me this all the time, and it is really important learning how to establish your position before you rush into a submission that when you first start, you're probably not gonna hit it. So what do I mean by that? there are a couple of very dominant positions in Jiu Jitsu that we are always trying to get to. Full mount, back mount, and side control are probably the most dominant positions that you can have. And it's really important that when you learn how to get there, and you do get there, that you learn how to establish those positions before rushing and moving on to something else. Here you can see me setting up a bump sweep on Todd and getting straight into mount. When I get into mount, if I don't establish a good base, if I don't control a couple of key things, it'll be really easy for him to just bump me over and I'm back on my back. And the sweep that I just worked so hard for doesn't mean anything. So when I'm in mount, I want to make sure I establish a good base. I want to make sure I establish good control before I move on from there. I'm getting head control. I'm getting one arm underneath his neck. I'm getting arm control. I'm getting one arm underneath his armpit. I want to make sure that my knees are pressed in against his body. I want to make sure that my hips are low so that there is no space between my body and his. And if I want to, if I feel like he's bumping a lot, I can vine my legs with his to prevent him from bumping his hips up. Now, there's various ways you can control your partner when you're in mount, and I'm sure you will learn a lot of them, but try to take note of a couple of different key points by controlling the head, controlling the arm, being chest to chest, hip to hip, and then, ideally moving into a high mount where his hips can't bump yours. So we want to establish our position versus, say, getting into mount, rushing to a submission, it not working, and then I'm back on my back. So here you can see I successfully execute the bump sweep. I get into mount. I do not establish my position. I do not get control of Todd. I quickly go for a sloppy armbar, and Todd is immediately able to escape, come back on top, and now I'm right back on my back without even a guard. So with any kind of position that you successfully establish when you're rolling, whether it's side control, full mount, back mount, even closed guard, when you get there, work on staying in that spot, work on controlling your partner from there before you move on to something else. Now, before we move on to the last 2 points, I want to stop, take a second, and give a huge thank you to Ashi Gear. They reached out to me and they sent me this fireeee and a really beautiful rash guard. I received my package yesterday, opened it right away. I was super hyped. I wore the gi and the rash guard that night in training. Now, if you watched my video that I will put up here on what I wear in Jiu Jitsu, you know that I am so picky, just like everyone else is, I would imagine. Super picky with my gis and the way that they fit. Every little detail matters. And if I didn't like the way that this gi fit, if I didn't like the way that it felt, then I would not be telling you guys about it. This beautiful, sleek gi is super light. It feels really good. It does not feel heavy. It's got their brand on the back, their cute logo on the sides, and I'm just gonna say I love that this is purple because it matches my belt. And then the inside is really cool too. Now, you guys know how picky I am about the drawstrings on my pants, and I will say these guys, they pass the test. They are round and stretchy versus being kind of flat and not stretchy, so that when I make my pants a little bit tighter, they just seamlessly make the pants tighter versus like awkwardly bunching them all up. I don't really know if this matters to anyone else, but it's really important to me, and I'm really happy that the drawstrings are exactly the way that I like them. What's even more amazing and what's even cooler than Ashi Gear being so generous and sending me a package is the mission behind their brand. Their goal is to not only create beautiful gis, beautiful rash guards, really high quality gear, but also, and more importantly, their goal is to get kids and teens training on the mat. So I'm here editing this video, and of course, as I am bragging about Ashi Gear, I'm editing the clip and the audio didn't connect. So freaking annoying. So anywho, like I was saying, not only was it so generous for Ashi Gear to send me this great package, but what's even more amazing about them is their mission. Look, you and I both know just how expensive jiu-jitsu is. And not even just the monthly memberships, but the gear that you need in order to train. The gis, the rash guards, the leggings, everything that goes along with training jiu-jitsu. It's a lot of money. And what's really amazing is that this brand is providing the opportunity for the younger generation to get into training. We all know all of the amazing benefits that jiu-jitsu could possibly have on our lives. So imagine all of the great things that jiu-jitsu can do for kids and teenagers. If you start them young, I truly believe that jiu-jitsu can really have such a great impact on their lives. So check out ashigear.com if you're interested in buying some new gear for yourself, or Christmas is coming if you need to buy a gift for a fellow jiu-jitsu family member, friend, child, whoever. Not only are you going to get really good quality gear, but you are supporting a small business with a really, really awesome mission. Now, these next 2 points on what to focus on when you're a brand new white belt, they are more technical points with specific movements. So point number 3, work on controlling your closed guard. When I have someone inside of my closed guard, there's a couple of things that I want to keep in mind. The first thing is I want to make sure that my feet are crossed around where their belt is. I don't want my legs crossed lower than my partner's hips. Focus on just having your feet wrapped around where your partner's belt line is. The next thing that I want to keep in mind is not only do I want to keep my feet tightly crossed, I want to keep tension with my knees on my partner's body. I also want to actively engage my knees, bringing them in towards my chest. I don't want to have my feet crossed and just keep my legs sort of extended. I want to keep them crunching in towards my chest. Now, the main thing that I want to keep in mind when I have someone inside of my closed guard is I want to control their posture. I want to bring their posture down. And the way that I'm going to do that is by getting grips either on the inside of their collar, on the outside of the near side collar, or I can start getting grips on their sleeves. Before you even start doing sweeps and submissions, and before you probably will even remember any of those things, focus on learning how to control your partner inside of your closed guard. Once you start learning how to do that, you are already taking a step in the right direction and everything else will follow. And the last point that I have for you guys on what to focus on when you are a brand new white belt is how to establish a good base when you are inside someone's closed guard. I'm gonna tell you, being inside someone's closed guard is really, really difficult. It can be a really hard position to learn how to navigate. It can be a really hard position to learn how to successfully get out of, because there's lots and lots of things that your partner can do to you if you are inside their closed guard. But some really basic things that I think that you can focus on before you even learn how to open the guard, before you learn how to do any kind of passing from there, some really basic points to focus on are: 1, getting a good base. So that means keeping your knees nice and wide outside of the person's hips. You want there to be space in between your knees. You do not want your knees close together. You don't want your knees touching, because that creates a narrow base for you, and it's a little bit easier for your partner to just maybe kind of push you over, topple you over to the side, or just work on different sweeps from there. So work on getting a good base by keeping your knees wide. The next point for sort of learning how to survive in someone's closed guard is hand placement. We want to keep our hands in front of us at all times. We do not want our hands on the floor. Do your best and focus on keeping your hands on your partner, whether that's inside their armpits, whether that's on their collar, on their belt, on the drawstrings of their pants. We want to keep our hands in front of us. We want to keep our elbows tight, and we want to keep our hands on our partner. Again, we don't want our hands on the floor, because that opens up our arms for different attacks. Here you can see if my hands are on the floor, Todd can easily start setting up a Kimura, which is no good for my shoulder. And the last little tip for surviving inside someone's closed guard is to work on getting your posture back. Your partner's goal when you're inside of their closed guard is to break your posture down. So obviously you want to do the opposite. You want to keep your head up, You want to keep your back straight, and you can use your hands in their body to help with your posture. Once your posture has been broken and your partner has a good idea of what to do with the closed guard, it can really go all the way downhill from there. If your partner starts to break down your posture, do your absolute best to get it back, to get your head back up, to bring your chest back up. If they have a grip inside of your collar, you can go 2 hands on one sleeve, rip the grip off, and start working your hands back in front of you. So again, quickly, what to focus on when you're inside someone's closed guard. You want to establish a good base. You want to keep your knees wide. You don't want them narrow. You don't want them touching. You want to have good hand placement. You want to keep your hands either on their collar, on their belt, on their drawstring of their pants, maybe in the armpits if you're trying to get your posture back. You want to keep your hands in front of you, your elbows are tight, and then lastly, you want to have a good posture. You want your chest up, you want your head up, you want your back straight. You don't want to be all the way bent over, leaning on your partner, because that is exactly what they want to start setting up different attacks. So I hope you liked this video, guys. I hope it was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments. If you liked these tips, then be sure to give this video a thumbs up. I kind of wish that I had these tips in mind when I first started training, because I was a hot mess for a really long time. And just remember, guys, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, even though things are really difficult and nothing makes any sense. One day, I promise, things will start to make a little bit of sense. Just a little bit. So until the next video, I will see you guys next time.